So the idea of templates is to pass the data type as a parameter so that we don't need to write the same code for different data types. So before writing the formal definition here, I will just give you a simple example of how templates work. So let's take an example of a function sum. So let's say this is a function sum, and if you give two inputs to this function, this function, it will just return the sum of the numbers, or you can say the sum of the inputs. So let's say this is a function sum. So now there is a question that what type of input we should give to this sum. For example, in some situation, we are giving the integers as an input to this sum. Let's suppose I give 2 and 3 as an input to this function, and then the function will return a value 5, which is the sum of these integer values. So what will happen if I want to give float numbers? I want this function to give me the output, the sum of the float numbers, for example 2.1 and 3.2. So the output will be 5.3. And what will happen if I will just give some character value? Let's suppose A and B are two characters, and I want this sum function to just concatenate these two characters. So the output will be AB. So this function sum is doing the same, you can say the same functionality, that is to add. So this function does the same thing in all these three cases. There can be some more cases also, but this function sum is doing this basic function of adding whatever input you are giving to it. So if you're giving integer values, it will sum up the integer values. If you give it the float values, it will just sum up the float values. So the question arises here, how will we write this sum function in an efficient manner? So we want to write this sum function in efficient manner. So a programmer, let's suppose a programmer says that I will create three functions. I will create three sum functions, and each of them will accept one will accept the integer values, the second one will accept the float values, and the last one will accept the character values. And we know that this is known as function overloading. So this is function overloading. So programmer says that I will just create three functions, and they are of the same name. They are of the same name, that is sum, but I will just overload them with different data types. So in that case, there will be three functions, sum 1, 2 and 3, and each of them does the same operations, but they are overloaded with different data types. So this is not an efficient way to do this. So if our function is doing same operations, or you can say our function has same code, but we want to work with different data types, then we will not use function overloading, we will use templates in C++. And I will just give a very simple example, a programming example of a template to make it more easier for you to understand. So the basic concept was that if the function sum has the same code, or if any function has same code, but you want to operate that function using different data types, so you will pass the data type to the function, the same function, and then the function will operate on that particular data type. So let me implement an example of a function template here. Function templates, because these templates are concerned with functions. So first of all, I will just write the header file iostream. So to write a template, you will use a reserved keyword template. So template is a reserved keyword. So I'm going to define a template here. So I will use the keyword template, and then we will use these arrows, these symbols, and then we will use another data type, another keyword, another reserved keyword, and that is type name. So I will write here type name, and then I can use any variable of my choice, and make sure that you are not writing a semicolon at this place. So this is a particular definition of a template, and type name is just the data type that you will give to the function. It can be integer, float, or character, and we will see further how this actually works. So let us now define our function here. So let's say my function is sum, and I want to give input values, two input values to this function sum. So let's suppose I want to give two input values to this function sum, but I don't know what will be the data type of these two inputs. So what I will do here is I will just give the data type as t, which is our template. You can see that this is our template. So at the time of function call, we will just provide the type name as integer, character, or float, and then that data type will get stored in this variable t. You can use some other variable also like u or something else, but for most cases, most conventionally, I am using t to make it more easier for you to understand. So a t is a template and it can hold different data type. So t can have the value int or float or even character. So let's now define our function. I will just write some code here. I will just print the values of x plus y. So next thing that I want to do is I want to return the sum. So let's suppose this is not a void function. If I'm returning something, I will just write return, and instead of storing the value of x plus y, I will just return x plus y. And since the returning value, we don't even know the data type of returning the data type. We don't know that if it is integer or float or character. So we will write the return type as t. So t can hold any value. So this is the basic definition, the function definition. So now what we are going to do is we are going to create our main function, and inside our main function the programmer now has the flexibility to provide this function sum some values, and the values can be of different data types. Let's see how. Let's suppose I want to print cout. Let's suppose I have not written this line because we are already returning the sum. So I will write cout, and then I will make a function call here. So to make a function call, you will have to write the name of the function, and then there is some change here. Then you will have to provide the data type of the input and the output. So the data type is, let's suppose in our first case it is int. So you will have to provide the data type using the data type itself, like int. You can write float here also, which we will do in the next line, and you will provide this in within these symbols, and then you will just pass two values to the function. Let's suppose I say 2, 3, and this is a semicolon. So this is our function sum, and we are passing the data type and the values also. So this data type int will get stored in this template t. So the t will have the value int. You can say it has a type name integer. So here you can replace t with this integer keyword. So it will be like int sum int x int y, and it will return integer. So this is how we will work with templates, and this is an example of a function template. So let's suppose I want to give float values. So I will write float within these symbols, and then I will provide the float values like 2.1, 3.3. So you can see how our program has become so much compact and so much efficient. So instead of writing this sum function 3 times and function overloading, so we are not overloading this function with 3 data types, we have made a single function, and we have provided a template to the function, and then at the time of function call, we will just pass the data type to the template, and the template can be used to assign the data type to the variables, to the inputs of the function. So this makes our program more compact. So I want you to try, I will recommend you to try it in your C++ IDE, and we will also implement this in C++ IDE. But before implementing, I just want to write here a simple definition of what a template is. So the template, the idea of a template is to pass data type. As you can see that we are passing the data type as a parameter. So as a parameter, so we are passing the data type as a parameter, and why we are passing it? So that we don't need to write, so that we don't need to write the same code for different data types. So you can see how templates have made our program so much compact. We are just using the template to assign the data type of the function,